Let me know once you guys can see the screen.
Yeah, we can see the screen.
Yes, sir,
All right,
we can see the
thanks.
screen.
Thanks for the confirmation. So welcome to Zero to CCNA. My name is Arpit Pandit. I will be your instructor. And this course is actually designed because we have been seeing for some time, Christian and I, that there are many CCNA courses out there, but mostly either they are bootcamp style, where like generally get 3 to 5 days of very rapid training and a lot of configuration they show you. But if you have to do it yourself, you need some time to grasp the concepts, understand its intricacies, and then you want to actually try it a couple of times before moving on to the next topic. So that time was the time that you need to give yourself to introduce a new topic and then to practice it enough to become comfortable before moving on to the next one. That was missing into most of the bootcamp kind of style of courses. So there was one kind of courses where you don't get much time, but there was another type where you get the pre-recorded sessions, like you can buy it on many platforms, you can just watch the videos, but it was actually missing the configuration part. And although CCNA is mostly theoretical exam, there will be few practical questions here and there, but mostly it is multiple choice questions, and we'll see the structure in few minutes. But the issue is that if you don't practice it, if you don't, let's say if I'm teaching you a topic and you don't get hands-on on that topic, you will not feel the same level of confidence as you would with the configuration and with the hands-on. So we saw that there was something configuration wise or hands-on wise, practical lab wise, something missing from these pre-recorded courses as well. So that's where we thought to create Zero to CCNA. Now, Zero to CCNA course is created in a way that we actually address both of these issues. First of all, it's a weekly course, so we have a session every week, and what we do in this is that we make sure that we are learning a particular topic, we are getting in depth about the concept, and we break it down into 3 questions every particular technology. Like, what is this technology that we are talking today? Why is it needed? Like, what problem is it solving exactly? And of course, the big question, how to configure it, how to troubleshoot it, and all these things. So once you understand it in this 360-degree manner, with these 3 things, what, why, and how, then of course it is backed up with a hands-on configuration as well. So we do a lab where we see it in practical, in implementation, that how it actually behaves once you configure it and how exactly it need to be configured. And then we have a 1 week break, right? So the next one actually we discuss, or the next topic we discuss next week. Sometimes a topic is big enough to go multiple sessions as well, so you get ample time to practice it on your own as well. So I will definitely be doing the lab in front of you in the Zoom session, but then you get the whole week to make sure that you can do it few more times, become comfortable and confident with this before moving on to the next one. Third thing which was missing in most of the courses is the live support. What happens is that it's all well and good when you are trying to learn some new technology. You might have some documents, you might be reading a book, or might be watching a video. But if you have a question and you get stuck somewhere, mostly there is little or no support at all. You have to depend on the forums, have to ask questions online, and then we'll have to wait for the answer. Sometimes the answer are not even accurate, because people post whatever they like to post. So it's not always going to be quick or accurate information online. So that is something also we wanted to make sure we fix it here. So in this course, every week when we meet on live Zoom. So there will be a very short Q&A session also at the end of the class. So if there is any questions or doubts, you can ask and get answers directly from me. And of course, during the week when you are doing the practice, of course, when you start doing the practice on your own, you will have more doubts or more questions or more issues. And then that time also, I will be available on email or on we have a very good Facebook group also where you can ask questions. And there is a very good community of students who can also chip in, answer your question, or maybe they can benefit from your question when I am going to answer those questions there. So the Q&A and the support during the week when we don't have the live Zoom session, This also makes this course different from many other courses out there, because what happens is you get all the information you need, but also if you still have some doubts or any questions, which is very normal to have, you will very quickly get your answers, and you will get the accurate answers. So it's not something that you have to depend some stranger. You are actually getting the answer from your verified instructor from for CCNA, right? So a little bit about myself. I have been in training business for more than 16 years, and I did my CCNA back in 2007, 2008, and then CCNP, and then I did my two of the CCIEs, the expert level certifications, in 2012 and 2014 for routing and switching and service provider. So training is something that is I enjoy, and I really like to make sure that I spend time more on making sure that the concepts become easier to understand. Because what happens is, once you understand why do you need something, a particular solution or a technology or a protocol, and what exactly is it solving, then configuration is easy. What happens is that people, when they think about technology or CCNA, they get scared because they are looking at all these commands they will have to remember. But remember, nobody actually can just memorize all the commands overnight. It takes some time. It takes a repeated practice, a phased repetition, and all of these things we are going to do. So nobody is expecting you to understand or remember commands right from the day one, right? So don't worry about the CLI configuration or how to do things. The more important thing is, like, if somebody asks you, okay, what is a spanning tree protocol? Or if somebody asks you, what is the difference between a distance vector routing protocol or a link state routing protocol? Why do we even need a routing protocol? What problem is it solving? So if you understand this logic and the, then it will be just a matter of time when you learn, when you start remembering the commands and the configuration as well. And anytime you are going for a production job in a production environment, they would not expect you to remember all the commands, but they definitely want to know that if you know how the traffic moves, what is the logic of routing versus switching and security, why do we need these things, and within the routing, why would you choose one routing protocol over the other? Do you even know the difference between them, the importance of them? That is more important thing. But once you get to configure things, or when you are working in an organization, you will have all the tools. You will have access to online configuration setups also. Many templates you will also get. So you don't need to remember every single bit of the CLI. Nobody remembers. Even I don't. If you say, okay, I'm in 16 years, I'm in this training business, and before that also I was working in industry. So I must remember all the commands which are out there. That's not even possible, right? So there are so many commands. It's the complete operating system, right? So you are not supposed to remember all these things. What you're supposed to do is to remember most important stuff and the logic of the things, how things work, how the traffic move into the network. If that is clear, what is networking and why do we need all these things, then it becomes easier, or just a matter of time before we get to the configuration part, right? So having said that, let's see the course structure, how exactly we will go about this course. So this course is going to be once a week, as we know. We will have the course every week. We'll have a 2-hour session. Although I always say this in my introduction classes, that it's a topic-driven class, not the time-driven class. So although this is just to give you like an idea, it will be 2 hours class, but mostly it will depend on the topic. Sometimes the topic are slightly bigger. It might go a little bit beyond 2 hours. Sometimes topics are smaller, so we might end up finishing the class in 1 hour 30 minutes or 1 hour 40 minutes. So it's not about the time, but the topic in hand. We make sure that you become completely comfortable with the topic, and then you also see me doing the lab so that you are ready to do it on your own and then become comfortable with the topic. So of course, this 2-hour session is divided into two parts, in-depth theory, and then of course we'll do practical labs. So what will happen every week, we are going to pick a topic. For example, we are doing switching, and there is a protocol in switching called a spanning tree protocol. So if today's topic is spanning tree protocol, I will go in detail theory of STP. And again, if you have done STP before, little bit, and you are coming back to refresh your memory, it is definitely going to help you. But if you are completely new, you have never heard of STP before, you say, I don't even know what this spelling tree protocol means. Don't worry. We actually will make sure that you start from the scratch, right? From the point where you don't know anything about the protocol to the point where you will be able to configure. That's why the structure is very important. What is STP, and then why do we need it? Like, what problem is it solving in networking world? And once that is clear, and from that route, when you come to configuration, it becomes much easier to understand the configuration as well, rather than just start typing the configuration or telling you the commands how to do it. That doesn't make much sense if you don't know what this thing is doing, right? What problem is it solving? So that's why theory is important. But of course, once we understand the theory, we want to see this in action so that it becomes the applied concept. And when you apply this configuration, it will make more sense. So in the second part of the session, so the first part will be around 1 hour, but again, it's not time driven. Sometimes the topic theory part will take more than 1 hour, sometimes less than 1 hour. But once we are done with the theory part, we will take a small break, like 5 minutes break, and then after coming back, we will do the lab. And when I say we do the lab, you don't need to do anything. You just need to watch and see me do the lab. So I will actually start a lab file, which is called the PDF file for the instructions, what we need to do. And we have a tool, emulation tool actually, where we will be opening or starting up all the routers and switches and configure things step by step as they are instructing into the lab file. So I will actually do it in front of you in the Zoom session. We'll go through the lab step by step what they're asking. And of course, I will not be quiet and just configuring things for to show you. I'll be explaining every single point. What do they ask? What are they asking? What do they mean by that? And why are we configuring the things the way we need to configure? And what happens with that is that just before this, you have already learned the theory of the topic, and now you are seeing the topic or the technology or the protocol being configured live in the Zoom session. It actually completes the circuit, and it completes the logic of the configuration, and you see, okay, that's how it is configured, and that's what it does when it is configured. And that will complete our Zoom session. Of course, what happens after that is that the lab file that I just used into the Zoom session, I'm going to send you that on email. So not only the lab file, I will also send you the solution file so that you can also practice the same lab while you are not into the Zoom session. So we have Zoom session only once a week, right? So before we meet next week, you have time to do this lab 2, 3, or 4 times, as many times as you want to do, to feel comfortable for that. And we will provide you all the tools to make sure that you have it set up on your laptop or desktop, so you don't need to depend on any rack rentals or any online reservation of time to do practice. You can practice anytime you are free. So that's another great thing about it. And one very important thing I want to point out here is that you need to change your mindset a little bit. You have to have the mindset of learning. So while you are in the Zoom session, it's natural that you will be in the learning mode because you will be listening to me. I will be explaining you the theory of the concept, and then I'll be doing the lab in front of you. So it's natural that you will be into the learning mode. But as soon as what happens, when I send you the labs PDF, asking you to configure the same thing during the week, people generally start testing themselves. They say, okay, let me try to configure this technology, and then let me see how much do I remember from the session, or can I configure it without looking at the solution? I should be able to do it. I just finished the Zoom session. Why don't I remember this or that? Don't beat yourself up for that. You are still into the learning mode. You're still into the mindset of learning when you are doing the lab on your own. As a matter of fact, throughout this course, all the 24 sessions that we will have, 20 to 24 sessions, you will be into the learning mode, even when you are doing the lab on your own. That's why I always send the solution file as well. And I highly encourage that whenever you get stuck, immediately go and check the solution file. Not because you don't remember something, but that's how the brain works. When you learn something new, you don't recall, or you don't actually remember everything immediately. So as soon as you get stuck somewhere and you quickly provide the information to the brain, it will remember it for the next time. It will say, okay, this is where I got stuck last time, and I knew I check the solution. And again, when you do it few times, it will become much easier to retain the information or to remember the information. So whenever you get stuck, you have to be happy that, okay, I'm going to learn something new now, or I'm going to recall some very important information that I am not able to recall without looking at the solution. So this is a great opportunity to learn things. Or if you are checking the solution file and you don't understand why the solution is the way it is, then of course you can contact me and you can ask me the questions and I will answer you. That is also another great learning opportunity, because you got stuck there in the logic because something doesn't make sense or something you missed in the live class, or you did not understand it correctly. But now you're asking me the question on the Facebook group or email, or we are also going to provide you the recording. So below the recording, there's a comment section you're asking there. So all these questions come directly to me, and when I answer you, you will actually get the complete picture of that. So anytime you get stuck, or after the class, if you don't understand something, when you are doing the lab on your own, you have to be happy that, okay, this is the opportunity to learn more. That's why I was saying that even when you are doing the lab, you have to be into the learning mindset, right? So that's why I call it the full hands-on approach. You make sure that we make sure that every week, except the first couple of weeks where we are starting, because we need to build some logic and like IP addressing, subnetting. This is a theoretical lab. But after that, after the first 2-3 weeks, you will see every single week when we start a protocol, we will have an associated lab as well, so that everything you get a complete hands-on approach as well. So you will see that we use an emulation software for this called EveNG. And this EveNG is an emulator. Emulator means that you don't mimic the real devices. You actually use the real operating system in the backend. So every router or switch, if you go and buy the physical routers and physical switches from Cisco, you will see that you get the chassis, you get the hardware, of course, but inside the hardware, you have the Internet Operating System, or iOS, from Cisco, not to be confused with the Apple's iOS, because that came later. Cisco created iOS, the name iOS, from 1984, my date of birth. So basically, it's the original iOS, you can call it Internet Operating System, and that operating system has all the commands and configuration that you do, right? So EVNG, what it does, it removes the hardware requirement, so you don't need to purchase all these chassis, multiple routers and switches, which can go which can go out of support after a few years. So it doesn't make any sense to spend so much money just for learning. Instead, it provides a front end of software. So you actually use your browser, and the browser connects to a Linux operating system, which is running this EVNG emulation software. Inside the browser, you open the GUI of it and you start creating different topologies. You can start adding multiple routers, connecting them the way you want to connect them to the switches. And in the backend, it is using the actual operating system images, the iOS from Cisco Internet Operating System. That is the real one that we use. So it's not a simulator. Simulator would be like a Cisco packet tracer, which actually mimics the real device. It's not actually the real device. But EVNG, you get the real device, because the operating system that you will be using to type all the commands and configuration will be same. It's the same full operating system. Just the front end is not a hardware. It's a emulation software, or just a GUI, like a web browser you will open on your desktop or laptop. And of course, whatever we are going to do in every week in these sessions, this is going to be recorded, and the recordings will be available to you for lifetime. So even if sometimes life happens and you have to stop for a few weeks, or even few months, and you come back and you think, okay, I want to refresh my memory. Can I watch the videos again? There is no time limit. It's not like your course is finished, now access is finished. That's not the case. You get the lifetime access to the recordings. Although recordings might be from one of the previous CCNA classes, because we have many CCNA classes always going on. So, and the topics are same, of course. So we don't keep the duplicate copies from every class. So you might see the recording not from our class, but from one of the previous classes. But the content will be same. For example, if you are talking about OSPF, it is going to be the same content, or access control list, or STP. everything will be according to the same structure for the same labs and same topic, right? So speaking of which, what are the CCNA topics that we are going to cover? So before I show you that, let me show you the software that we use, the EveNG. So when you import the EveNG, I have sent you an email with the link to download an OVA file. So you need to install the VMware workstation on a Windows machine, and then you need to import that OVA file that you will download from Dropbox, the link I sent you on the email. Now, once you do that, you will see that it will boot. It's actually a Linux operating system. So it boots and it leaves you at this login screen, the CLI login screen of the EveNG. Now, remember, first of all, you need VMware workstation for this. And nowadays, a company called Broadcom has purchased VMware. So the website is very confusing. And if you don't find VMware workstation online, or if you have any issues, let me know on the email, and then I will send you a Dropbox link to directly download the VMware workstation as well, the software that we use to host these virtual machines, right? So you boot this OVA file that I send you, import and boot it, and you will come to this screen, the login screen. The good news is that you don't need to log in here. It's not a CLI course. We will do everything. Of course, it's a CLI course for the Cisco devices. I mean, but it's not that you need to learn Linux also to start devices or connect them. It's completely from a GUI panel, right? It's a graphical user interface. So here you just need to note down the IP address. You will see an IP address mentioned here that you need to open in the browser. So for, in my case, it is 192.168.79.130. I need to open this IP address into any of my choice of the browser, Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge or whatever you like to use, right? So I just note down this address and I just go to one of the browsers and I will open this IP address. So 192.168.79.130, like that, right? So when you open this, this is where you will get the GUI of emulated virtual environment next generation, or EveNG, the software that we use as the front end. Uh, Username and password will be admin and EU, and you need to click on sign in, and then it actually leaves you to a list of topologies that are available for practice. Now, what are these topologies? So if you want to do practice on your own, you will have to first of all download the EveNG software, which is free. So you can definitely download it from evng.net, but it is just a front end, as I mentioned. So if you really want to practice CCNA, for example, what will happen is that you will have to somehow procure the iOS images, router images, switching images, or anything else you like to practice. And then you need to use a tool to copy them into the Linux backend here, where the event is installed. And you need to know a little bit of Linux also to copy it into the correct directories. And then to license them properly, you have to do some configuration. After the licensing is done, then you can go to the GUI, like we just came to this IP address and this GUI where we signed in here, and you will see a blank screen. So you will have to start creating topologies to think, okay, what can I create? How many routers can I take? How many switches can I take to practice everything needed for CCNA? So you can see there's a lot of things you have to do before you get to the practice part. So we wanted to make sure that we get rid of all that requirement and you can concentrate directly on the practice right from day one. That's why we compiled this OVA that I sent you the link for. This OVA actually includes the EveNG, which already has the routers and switching operating system images copied, licensed, and the topology is already created. So if you click on 0 to CCNA, for example, this is one of the topologies that we use. If you open it, you will see that routers and switches are connected in a certain way, like we have three branches, branch 1, branch 2, branch 3, connected over internet. So we can actually practice some switching and routing configuration, right? So you don't need to worry about anything. You can directly start configuring these things from the day one because everything is pre-compiled for you. So you can concentrate on the important thing which you came to learn here, CCNA, not have to spend time into setting up the lab for yourself, right? As you can see, there are many different topologies here. So we will use them for different purpose, like for any spanning tree protocol question, we will use STP topology. And as I mentioned that every week we will do the lab also after going through the theory session. So let me show you an example of a lab. So like this is the STP lab. So I'll tell you that which topology you need to open for this one. So we need to open 0 to CCNA lab, and what you need to do before you start configuring devices, and then what you need to configure, like create these VLANs. Now, of course, before we do this, I will explain you what exactly VLANs mean and why do you need it on the switching part and all these things, right? So don't worry about the content right now. I'm just showing you the structure, that how the labs look like every week. And then there will be a solution file also, which I'll send you along with the question file. So for example, when I ask you to create VLANs, this is how you do it. So these are the commands that you will need to create the VLANs, which are also mentioned into the solution file. Just to give you an example, right? There are some protocols which will need configuration of multiple um, boundaries, like different areas, different companies, different organizations. Like in case of OSPF, you can create multiple areas. So I'll also have a topology where we can divide this into areas, area 0, area 1, area 2, area 3, like this. So don't worry if you don't understand any of these things right now, like what is STP, what is OSPF. That's not the point. The point is that we will have topologies for every new topic that we are going to learn. And speaking of topics, what topics are we going to learn? So in CCNA, currently the exam version is 200-301, and the version is 1.1. And this one actually contains many of the important routing, switching, and security topics. For example, we will go through basics of networking, IPv4 addressing and subnetting. We will learn about some switching topics like VLANs, PTP, Ether channel, Hispanity protocol. Excuse me. We will also understand some router basic configuration to start routing part. So this is very important to understand one thing. I always tell people that whether you want to go in cybersecurity, you are interested into learning Linux, or you want to learn cloud technologies like AWS or Azure or Google Cloud Platform, or maybe you want to become a security professional or a voice collaboration professional, everything starts with the fundamental knowledge of routing and switching. That's why CCNA is the perfect start for doing anything else in future. Maybe you are interested into more advanced stuff, so you can go for CCNP, and then of course later from professional to CCIE for expert level. But even if you are not interested into routing switching, I highly suggest to go through CCNA to everyone, because CCNA give you the basic building blocks of networking, which is used everywhere. So cloud is not even possible without networking. Security is not possible without networking. Configuring your servers, web server, your database server, your file transfer servers, they will not be able to serve any of the clients if there is no networking. So networking is the infrastructure. That's why they call it the enterprise infrastructure nowadays, instead of routing and switching. But yes, you need to know what is switching, you need to know what is routing, and you need to know how to do them comfortably, how to configure them comfortably. And that's exactly what we are going to make sure you do at the end of this course. So at the end of CCNA, of course, you will be ready for your CCNA exam, but also you will be ready to answer any routing and switching questions. And more importantly, you will feel comfortable about configuring routing and switching. You will know the difference, you will know what it means. And that is a great starting point for anything else you want to do later when you go for a little bit advanced level, right? So that's why switching and routing both will be covered in detail. In routing, we will see a lot of examples of static and default routing, and also a routing protocol, OSPF. We'll also understand another routing protocol, BGP, and IP version 6. IP version 6 is the new version of addressing, we'll see as well. And then we'll also talk about a lot of services. So you'll see that services only work, as I mentioned, if your infrastructure is already set. If your routing and switching are working, then only you can start providing services, or you can use some additional services. So we will see these services, but of course, before this, your routing and switching should be properly configured. So we'll see tunneling, translating addresses when you're going to the internet, keeping the time synchronized on all the devices, network time protocol, changing the name to IP address. Like you always go to the browser, you type google.com, you type facebook.com, you never bother what is the IP address of their web server, because that is the responsibility of DNS. It actually translates that name into an IP address, because to go anywhere you need an IP address, but you don't need to remember 100 IP addresses, but you probably remember 100 website names for sure, right? So name to IP resolution, DHCP to provide IP address to the computer, so you don't need to manually type IP addressing every time. A lot of these features we are going to talk about: quality of service to prioritize some important traffic over other traffic, and all these things we are going to talk or discuss into this course as well in IP services. And of course, security is a big part as well. So once your infrastructure is set, your switching is configured, your routing is configured, services are set. Now everyone can access everything. But do you really want that? Do you want everyone to be able to access everything? Most of the time, that's not the case, right? There are different levels of authorizations, like who can access what services. Everyone should not be able to access everything. So that's where we'll see some access control list concept, where we can control who can communicate, which networks can communicate which other networks, or which computers can communicate, can access which services. That is something we can control by configuring something called access control list, right? So it's like a security guard you are placing in front of the routing door, like router interfaces, and the security guard is checking who is coming in, who is going out, according to a list of people he has, and he is permitting or denying the entry or going out, depending on whatever is the action associated with the name. So this is a very interesting concept, and we'll see, of course, a lab for this as well. So most of these topics, as you can see, are hands-on topics. Like whenever we are going to discuss about it, there will be an associated lab as well. That's why they will be part of the live Zoom session. But then there are some topics that you should be aware of, although there will be no simulation, or there will be no practical question in the exam. For example, wireless or virtualization basics or automation and programmability. So once we are done with all our live Zoom sessions, we will open some more videos for you to watch, few videos where you understand the basics of wireless, VMs, automation and programmability, so that you are ready for the exam. But you don't need to do any hands-on on these things on the CCNA level. They don't want you to do any of these things, because wireless they are just introducing here, so that if in case if you want to go for CCNP wireless, and later on the expert level for wireless, you have some basic knowledge already. Same thing if you want to go further in virtualization or automation and programmability, there is a CCNP automation and CCIE automation. You may want to choose that path. So it is more like marketing thing, right? They want to give you some more things that they have, and some features maybe you're interested. They are not directly related to routing and switching, but good to have some basic knowledge of these things. So we will have some videos pre-recorded for these things. We will not have any labs for these, because you don't need any hands-on experience on the CCNA level for these topics, right? So after we complete this course, you will be actually much more confident, and you will be ready for any kind of question you get into the exam, as far as simulation is concerned or any logical question is concerned. But speaking of exam, what exactly is the structure of the exam? So let's say you are done with this course and now you want to become CCNA certified. So what exam are we looking at right now? So the CCNA exam, which is currently active, has the exam code 200-301, and it's a version 1.0 was there, and then they made some minor changes which we have incorporated already. So now it is called version 1.1. And this is another thing I want to point out, that once you buy this course, and let's say after a couple of years you want to refresh your CCNA knowledge, and you find out that there is a completely new CCNA exam and there are many new topics, but when you come to the recorded sessions which are available for lifetime, you will see those new topics already included. And of course, you have the lifetime access, so you also get the access immediately, right? Now, this is actually a 2-hour exam, 120 minutes. If you're a non-native English speaker, then you get 30 minutes more. So you get 150 minutes. But 120 minutes is also enough. The type of questions that you get are MCQs, multiple choice questions, where you have to choose one or more options from multiple options. Drag and drops, you might have two tables and you have to drag the correct value to the correct definition. Tables matching, there might be some tables you need to match the values. Or simulations. Simulations means the practical question. You will see a topology. You have to click on the devices and you have to start configuring them, or start checking the show commands to see their configuration. So that's where your hands-on knowledge will be very, very useful. And although if you think there are like 50 to 60 questions in the exam, out of which there will be maybe 4 or 5 simulations. If in some rare cases might be 6, 7 simulations, but mostly there will be MCQs and drag and drop questions. So you have very little simulation questions. It's not like half of them will be practical questions. No, only 4 or 5 lab questions will be there, simulations will be there, but their weightage is much more than the other questions. So this is a weighted exam. You have more weight for the simulation questions. So you cannot say that, okay, I'll skip all the simulation questions because there are only 4 or 5, and I will do the other 45 questions or 55 questions correctly, accurately. You will fail the exam if you do that. You need to at least do 3 out of 5 or 4 out of 5 simulations correctly because they have very high weight in the exam, right? That's why the hands-on approach that we have is perfect for CCNA exam, because it will be a piece of cake after doing the labs that we have every week after week, because these labs that we have, these are slightly more challenging than what you would see in the exam, right? And slightly more configuration than what you would do in the exam. So you will be basically slightly over prepared. CCNA plus, you can call it, as far as the practical configuration is concerned, right? And as I mentioned earlier, to do all these things, what kind of tool we use? So we use EveNG on VMware. So again, make sure that you install the VMware software. If you have any issue of procuring the VMware software from Broadcom website, contact me and I'll make sure that you have the correct tools. And then the OVA file that I have sent you the link for, you need to import it into VMware. And when you boot it, you will see that you have the EveNG topology, EveNG software. And when you open it into the GUI, you will see all the topologies are there. And every week we will use one of the topologies to practice different concepts and topics. So of course, the OVA file is something I have already sent you. So also let me know if you haven't received it, or check your spam folder. Maybe it has landed there. It should come from arpit@karotul.com. So ARPIT, Arpit. And the file actually is a Dropbox file. So when you download it, there will be 2 files there. One is the OVA file and one is the Windows client pack. The Windows client pack is useful. If you install it, what will happen is that you will have all the tools to access the devices, the terminal tools like PuTTY software to access the CLI, and Wireshark to see the packets in real time when they are moving from one device to another device. For packet inspection, Wireshark can be installed. So the EveNG Windows client pack, it's a very small software apart from the OVA file that you can also install on your Windows machine. Uh, how much RAM should you have in your laptop or desktop for this? So recommended RAM is 8 gig, and I'm talking about the complete system RAM, not how much you have to give to the EveNG. EveNG you can give 4 gig or 5 gig, and that should be more than enough for CCNA. But if you have an 8 gig laptop or 8 gig desktop, that will be more than sufficient for this. Anything less than this, you might see a little bit of performance hit. It might be slower, slightly, but not so much. So that's why it is not the minimum requirement. It's the recommended requirement. And you will see there is a portal. Christian must have actually told you about it, 02it.com or My Kajabi, where you go to that website, and when you log in with your credentials that Christian has provided you, you will be able to access the pre-recorded sessions, right? Where every week we'll open the next session and next session where you can watch the recordings, and that's where you will have the lifetime access, right? So in those recordings, the very first week has an EveNG setup video as well. So once you download the OVA, what exactly do you need to do after that? Step by step, that is explained into the EveNG setup video. So definitely check that out as well. If you have any issue into accessing your recorded sessions, then you can contact Christian and he will make sure that you have the correct credentials to do that, right? Of course, after you watch that video, you will know that what to do. But basically, you set up the memory or RAM of the virtual machine according to your requirement. And the network adapter, the first one, has to be set to NAT, so that when you boot the OVA, finally, you should get something like this. You should get an IP address here. And if you don't see the IP address, then shut down the VM and make sure that the first network adapter is set to NAT, and then boot it again, and you should get an IP address here. And once you see the IP address here, again, you don't need to log in here. You just need to open this IP into the browser, as I mentioned earlier, right? So this is the structure I wanted to discuss today. First of all, what is this course about? Like how we are going to go about it. So every week we will have the theory and the lab session where I will explain you the theory and I will do the lab step by step, explaining everything within the Zoom session. And then since you will already have the EveNG tool, during the week you can do the lab again many times. And there will be a short Q&A session at the end of every live Zoom session where you can ask me some smaller questions. But if you have more in-depth questions where you want to show me some screenshots or some configuration, Facebook group will be the great place because you can post many images there. You can ask detailed questions, and other people will also benefit from your question when I answer that. Of course, you can also ask the question below the recorded video. So let's say if you're watching the recording during the week, you will see there is a comment section below the recording. You can ask your question right there. Maybe you're watching something and you say, oh, this is the part I don't understand. You immediately pause it, you type your question in the comment section, hit enter, and go back to watching the video. And that question also will come directly to me. Lastly, of course, you can send me an email also directly, but that's the least recommended method because mostly the emails are used to send the lab files and the solution files, right? So more, it might be a slightly delayed to answer on the email. So I think we already discussed this part, but just to quickly go through how this program can help. So all the important theory is covered, multiple labs to start practicing from day one. And this course is not a boot camp. So we don't actually hastily go through all the important topics in a week or 7 days and then we are done. Instead, this course is spread over 6 months, so 24 weeks. So you have ample time to practice and gives you some breathing space, understanding one topic and then giving it some time to think about it, to configure it during the week before starting the second topic. And of course, my support will be there throughout the duration. So if you have any questions, I just mentioned different channels to contact me and ask me any questions, and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. I will send you the lab PDFs along with the solution every week, wherever we cover that time. And the recording of the sessions will be available for lifetime. So that's why we this course is the only thing that you will need to pass your CCNA exam, and more importantly, to become comfortable with networking. So right now, if you have absolutely no idea what networking is, don't worry, we'll start from there. That's why this course is named Zero to CCNA. So even if you're at zero networking, at the networking, we will start from there. But remember, anytime you learn anything new, uh, the initial part is always the most frustrating. I'm telling you this because whenever you learn something new, subconsciously you are registering things, but consciously what happens, because you can't retain everything immediately, it becomes frustrating because, oh, why don't I remember this? Or okay, I understood this in the class, but now I forgot again, and I have to watch the recording again. Oh, now I understand again. It's very frustrating. Why did I forget that? It's the logic was clear. So don't beat yourself up about that. Give yourself some time. Even initially, if it feels like overwhelming or too much, and how would I remember all these things? The news is you don't need to remember everything right now. When you are watching the video, when you are into the Zoom session, when I'm explaining something, did you understand the logic? And I'm going to keep it very real world. I will take the examples from real world and I'll explain you things. So you will understand the logic for sure. Because it's not that you don't have the wisdom to not understand. It's just that you don't have enough practice to retain the information, and nobody has it in the first couple of sessions only or 3 sessions. So give yourself some time, be a little bit lenient with yourself, and even if you forget something or you don't understand something, say, okay, don't worry. It's not the end of the world. I have the recordings. I have the instructor support. I can watch the recording, ask again 10 times. And even then, if I don't understand, I will do it again next week and then I will start understanding. So it will take some time to get into the grooves and start making progress, or at least seeing progress. It's like going to the gym. You don't start hating yourself because you don't see any gains in the first 3 or 4 weeks. Yeah, but if you keep doing it, something is changing in you, and then in few months you will start seeing the gains. That's the muscles that you will get in CCNA as well, but these are the, of course, the logical muscles. So that's it for today's introduction part. about myself, I already mentioned that I have been in training business for more than 16 years. So although it's a cliche, but training is my passion, and nothing makes me and Christian and I more happy than seeing people understand the logic and the concept, and becoming more self-sufficient about configuring technologies, right? I did the CCIE exam twice, one for routing and switching and one for service provider. So I have two CCIE certifications. Of course, I have CCNP and CCNA certification as well, along with other certifications like Juniper, a little bit of Linux as well, and security certifications. So I also, apart from this, work in as a consultant for many organizations. So I know what are the latest technologies being used in the organizations and how they are dealing with them. So I try to incorporate that real life examples also here and there whenever it is useful, right? So all these things, and of course, when I say training is my passion, what it means is that my first and foremost uh, objective is to make sure that you understand the technology and you become comfortable with the technology, right? Everything else will naturally come to you after that, like passing the certification, or passing any interview, or using it in your day-to-day production life. That all comes from the comfort level with the technology, and that's what I want to make sure we cover, right? So that's why in every class we will go through the three questions I mentioned. What is the technology? Why do you need it? And then, of course, how to configure it. All right. So it was a short session today, but just introduction. So I wanted to make sure we go through this. So thank you very much. And let me know if you have any questions.